Hey everybody, I'm here to give an update. I know it's been a little bit of a while, busy time, but I'm going to give an update on things that I've read recently, and of course, most importantly, Sunrise on the Reaping, because obviously I've read that. But before I give an update on that, I did also finish reading Real Not Perfect by Stephanie Coleman, and it's the Riverbend Friends series. It's a series done by Focus on the Family, so it is a Christian series, and it is geared towards teens. But let me tell you, when I read this book, it really emotionally affected me because of the fact that oh, I still have my bookmark in here. Whoops. I I have share a lot of the same experiences in the age that this girl was at that time. So, if that makes sense. So, it's a story about a girl whose parents are going through divorce and kind of how in a Christian household how that's handled, but also it didn't focus too hyperly on that. It was just more focused on what she was going through and like because like in when you're in the faith of a Christian, like it is discouraged to get divorced, but people do get divorced for many reasons, and I'm not saying that divorce is a bad thing. I think that there are many cases when it's a very necessary thing. It's a sad thing in any case, unless of course there's terrible things going on, in which case yes, get out of there, girl. But it's the main focus anyway. Regardless of that, the main focus of this story is this young girl whose name is, I think I would, Tessa, sorry, whose name is Tessa. She's the lead girl, and how she has to come to terms with the fact that her dad, who's decided to leave the family for another woman, will always choose that other woman over her. Okay. And as a child of divorce who experienced a similar situation with my dad, who decided that he was going to choose the other person over the family, a lot of this really hit home with me. So even though it is geared towards teens, and some of it is like, yeah, you can tell, but it really was very impactful for me even as an adult, and looking at it and being like, oh, I know those feelings, and I know exactly what she's feeling right now, and I know exactly what she's feeling right now. So I think that this is a great book, obviously for teens, but even for me, I had a great time. The faith content was good. Um, and I just thought it was a really great story. And there are other characters in here in her friend group that are also that also have a book focused around them, which I'm hoping to read in the future. But this was a great start, and I would definitely highly recommend Real Not Perfect to anybody, especially if you're a teen or maybe a child or maybe you yourself have experienced as a child of divorce what it's like. It's a great book. So I read that, and after that, I've just been reading The Hobbit slowly. I'm also in a Bible study right now, so been reading the book for that. So it's my reading has not been as fast as it normally is. Well, not that I'm a slow reader. That's why I'm still reading The Hobbit, but I am halfway through. But of course, most importantly, I had to drop everything when Sunrise on the Reaping dropped by Susan Collins. Of course, we know this is a Hunger Games novel, based on Haymitch's Hunger Games, and Haymitch being the mentor for Katniss and Peeta, if you recall, from the original Hunger Games series. And Haymitch was in the second quarter quell ever. I don't know if that's how you pronounce quarter kell, quell, I think. Um, but his was the second one, because the first was the 25th, and then the 50th, and then the 75th or 76th or whatever, 75th, I think. Okay, well, yeah, you know what I mean. Because Katniss's was the 74th, and then the 75th is the next one. Yeah. That makes sense in my brain. Okay. Anyway, so his was the 50th Hunger Games, and tragic that his birthday. Did we know his birthday was on the reaping day? Because I didn't know that. If I did, I didn't remember it at all. Anyway, Haymitch's birthday is on the reaping, so it like starts out with like this happy birthday from his little brother named Sid and his ma, and them kind of just going through the paces of daily life. I really loved how it introduced every part of his life in just that short span of the morning of the reaping. Like, I thought that was really cool how she did that. I mean, I commend Susan Collins. I really love how she writes. I think she writes really well. because she's very good at conveying things quickly and efficiently, but also it's like, oh, I've known that the whole time. It just becomes like just basic knowledge in your brain. I don't know how to explain it anyway. So, like, it just goes through his morning, and he goes, Sid, his little brother, he talks to his ma. Um, there's just people around town that he mentions, whatever. Bert, oh my gosh, dude. Anybody who's followed Hunger Games this whole time, right? If you've read every book or watched the movies or done all of that, you are gonna love this book because this book is just full of like, oh, look at over here. Look at you like that character? Look at over here. Look over here. Like just tons of like what is it? What's the word I'm looking for? Easter eggs or like, just even though they're not Easter eggs, they're just part of the world, but younger versions of characters and things like that. So, or characters that you've only heard about but never seen, like Burdock Everdeen, which is Katniss Everdeen's father, who was best friends with Haymitch, at least for a while. And I'm trying to think of who else. Well, there's others. I'll get to the others, but Burdock Everdeen really caught me. I was like, what? Oh, okay. And then you have Lenore Dove, who is Haymitch's love interest, and she's one of the Covey, which are like travelers, people that I don't think you're allowed to use this word anymore, but the only descriptive word that because I don't know if travelers I've heard travelers is also not a word that they like use, but gypsies, and I know that's not a word that people like to be used, so sorry. I just don't know the other, I don't know the proper description. Those are the two words that I've heard to refer to people like this, and I don't know what the proper reference is, so I'm just gonna use them both and hope for the best. Because I've heard people describe themselves as such, so I don't know. But anyway, so the Covey, they are the traveling people, or they were before they all got rounded up and left in District 12. And of course, we know Lucy Greybird as one of the, she was in the Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes. She was Snow's kind of love interest, but she was the first winner for the Hunger Games for District 12 ever. Um, Thanks to Snow, actually. Snow kind of made that happen. But anyway, we're not going over the Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes today. I think I already have a video on that anyway, so go listen to that. But anyway, so for the 50th quarter quell, they always do something special for a quarter quell. So, we know from the 75th one that they had victors from the Hunger Games come back, basically, make their little comeback, right? Which is why it sucked for Katniss because, she was the only female victor. So, and, so that was their gimmick. I think they said that the first ever quarter quell was that the district had to choose who would go, which that's sick, well done, Snow. And then for this one, they had double the amount of tributes. So 2 girls, 2 boys. So the rate of being picked is a lot higher. And this one was really interesting to me. The reaping for this was really crazy because it wasn't what I expected at all. I knew Haymitch was going to be picked. I had no idea it was going to be basically rigged. Insane. Well, not rigged, but he wasn't supposed to be picked. Kind of like Katniss wasn't supposed to be picked, but she volunteered as tribute. Now, Haymitch did not volunteer as tribute, but what happens is, and I am going to say spoilers for this book, so if you read it, great, that's awesome. If you haven't read it and you don't want spoilers, then probably don't watch this video. Come back when you've read it. So what happens is, let's see if I can remember who was picked. So for the girls, it was Maisie Donner, which if I didn't remember the last name, like it was familiar to me, but the mayor's what's her name? Oh my god, Madge? So the mayor's daughter that's friends with Katniss, Madge, I'm pretty sure her name is, she's Madge Donner. And so Maisley's granddaughter, right? Technically? Yes, gotta be. But, or not granddaughter, grandniece. There we go. Because, Maisley didn't make it. And then you have Luella McCoy, and I don't know if the McCoys were relevant, but Haymitch is good friends with their family, the McCoy family, so Luella gets chosen. She's 13, Maisley is 16, I think. Maisley's kind of a stuck-up, like, She's a what do they call them? They're merchants, town girl. That's it. So there's like the town and the seam, and the seam are like the really poor folk, and the town are like the people who have some money. So Maisley's one of those, and she's always like really prim and proper or whatever, and Hamish just calls her like stuck up and all that stuff, right? But Luella he calls her sweetheart, which I thought was interesting because I know he calls Katniss his sweetheart too. So it's funny how that nickname he uses it for Katniss later. So I thought that was interesting. Um, but yeah, so those two get chosen, and Luella's like all, she's ready to go, kind of thing. And then for the boys, Wyatt Callow is chosen. Now this, I like this. Okay, in this book they really go a little bit deeper into the Booker boys, and the Booker boys are a group of guys or a family or a couple families or whatever it is that make bets on the Hunger Games. I think they make bets on like multiple different things, but they actually do bet on the Hunger Games, and most of District 12 hates them because they do that, because I mean it's sick, right? You should not be betting on the lives or deaths of children. Like, that's sick. It's sick. So everyone agrees. So Wyatt Callow getting picked is kind of just like, okay, well, we don't like this family anyway. They're Booker boys, so okay, you can go. But he goes out there, and then Woodbine, oh, what's his last name? Oh, I don't remember. I don't want to look it up. Woodbine Carson or something. Genuinely, the name has escaped my brain, but Hamish describes them as being like rebels, and they are constantly like causing problems, and most of Woodbine's family has been like hung for various acts of rebellion in the district, and they're kind of troublemakers. um and so I don't think I even talked about Lenore Dove yet. Okay, we'll backtrack it there, but anyway, so Woodbine gets called, Wyatt gets called. Wyatt goes right up there. When Woodbine gets called, he freaks out and splits. He decides to book it, try to get out of there, okay? And he gets past the peacekeepers on the ground, but there's like snipers, right? And so he gets shot, dead, done. Like, and Drusilla, who is the Effie, she has like the guide role, like she's the one who chooses from the bowls, and she's like Effie Trinket, but before, much less cool, okay? But Drusilla like freaks out. She's like, ew, they're disgusting. Why did you do that? Why did you shoot him? Now his blood's everywhere. Like, she's causing a whole scene, right? And she's getting all angry that how dare the district like make her look bad and blah 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 blah. I mean, a child is dead, but whatever, right? Oh my gosh, the Capitol really, like, the Capitol always grates on my gears, okay? Always. But in this book, for some reason, the characters, the Capitolites, aside from like a couple, made me like really want to like, ugh, you know? It's crazy. Um, so anyway, so Woodbine gets killed, and then kind of Woodbine's mother tries to like run over to him, right? Tries to get past the peacekeepers, but the peacekeepers are like not letting her in. She's like, "Don't take my baby." And then Lenore Dove, who is Hamish's love interest, she's a bit of a revolutionary herself. She's a bit of a rebel herself, and Hamish worries about her a lot, right? But she goes in there and she's trying to stop the peacekeepers from hurting Woodbine's mother, and then I think Astrid, or which Astrid, I think that's how you pronounce her name. That's Katniss's mama. Okay, we get an appearance from everybody here. All right, it's very exciting. But she tries to go and she tries to stop it, and Hamish is worried because he's like, dude, they're gonna hurt Lenore and they're gonna hurt Astrid, right? So he goes in to save Lenore from the peacekeepers, and he's literally just like, hey, grabbing her to pull her back, right? Not even trying to fight the peacekeepers, none of that. And the peacekeepers go up to hit him with the butt of their gun, and he gets hit by it, and then they grab him and throw him up on the stage, and Drusilla's like, okay, well, I guess you just got raped. Basically, I don't remember word for word what she says, but she says, all right, well, you're going to be the tribute then. So literally, he was scot free, dude. He had his name in there so many times because of the tesserae, which is what they put their name in for so they can get extra food for their families, right? So he had his name in there like so many times, plus the odds of an extra person being reaped that year. His odds were not looking good. And yet he got out. He was about to go. He's like, I'm about to go in the meadow and hang out with Lenore Dove. But it didn't happen, dude. It ain't like that. So he gets reaped. But because of all of the chaos of what happened with Woodbine running and getting shot, they have to like reshoot everything, which I thought was like so sick, dude. I'm like, what? So like they made everybody go back to their spots, knowing that they've already been reaped. Go back, stand in your spots, act normal, and I'm gonna call you guys again. You're gonna come up and be normal about this, and we're not gonna make any sign of rebellion or anything like that. Freaking sick, dude. So they all go, and like Haymitch is like numb, like he's like, what just happened, right? And then they all, the names, she calls the names, nothing else happens, and they go up there and everybody's well behaved. And so that's what's going to be broadcasted to the Capitol because it's not really live, okay? And so, and oddly enough, because, well, I guess not oddly enough, but because of the chaos that happened, they didn't let anybody have meetings with anybody, except this is where Plutarch Heavensbee comes in. Plutarch is how you say his name, I think. Um, which from the original Hunger Games, he's part of the revolution and all this kind of stuff. Um, and he comes in and he's like, "Hey, well, I need to." He's part of the filming for District 12, and he's like, "Well, I need to film. I need some like drama. I need some tears. So I'm gonna take Haymitch and his family and just film some of them crying or whatever." And Plutarch does this, and Haymitch is actually the only one, I think, who's able to hug his family before he goes. I'm pretty sure he's the only one that gets to. And Haymitch starts to think, I mean, he's like, well, Plutarch, this guy just wants my family to cry on camera as it's sick, right? Which they do because they want to be able to hug Haymitch, so it is sick. But you start to think maybe Plutarch has an angle here, right? At least I did. I was like, well, I know what he's going to end up doing, so I guess this is where it begins, right? And then so after that he gets whisked away. They get whisked away on the train, and that is that. The only thing I didn't mention is that so Haymitch has, you know, not an official job, but he works for Hattie, and Hattie runs a still, and so he helps her make white liquor, which gets him money to be able to help pay for his family, and he helps Hattie make white liquor for the district. And it's funny because throughout the whole thing, he talks about how much he hates liquor and he would never drink and he doesn't like the taste of it and all this stuff. And then, I mean, we know where he ends up. So it's like, it's actually devastating to hear him say stuff like that because it's like, oh, my dude. Oh, I wish you'd stayed that way. It's not good for you. It's not good. You're right. It's not good. But, he's 16 at the time and he didn't want to. And he spends most of his time just taking care of his family, all this kind of stuff. And his ma works really hard, and Sid is so sweet. Oh my gosh. Like, his little brother is just so cute, and his ma is like really sweet. And you can see where like Haymitch he had so much, and the love of his life and all this stuff. So his life was really great, and then it all gets ripped away because of one accident, him just stepping out of line, one time. You know what I mean? So anyway, they get whisked away on the train, and Luella comes up to Haymitch pretty early on and says, "Hey, I don't want to be allies with Wyatt because Wyatt's a Booker boy." And Haymitch is like, "Yeah, no problem." He's like, I don't want to be allies with Maisie because she's a snob. So they kind of both have this agreement that they're going to be allies with each other. But Maisie and Wyatt both overhear this, and they're like, "Why don't we can? I mean, way to be stuck up. Me and Wyatt will be allies and whatever." But also, they decide to show kind of what they got. Well, I guess Maisie doesn't really show what she's got until later, but Wyatt starts spewing out odds at random times. And I really thought Wyatt was so interesting. And he's like, listen, I'm not a Booker boy, I'm an oddsman. So he can make odds out of like anything. And the scenes where he talked about odds had me like on the edge of my seat. I was like, this is cool. This is a cool character. He's got like big brain energy. Like, he can see the whole map. You know what I'm saying? I was like, he is going to be so cool in the games. I mean, I don't really know. I guess that's not entirely truthful because, like, how can you really use that talent in the games? You know, the big brain energy, but I really liked it, and I thought he would be really interesting, and it would have been cool to see how he could have used that maybe more in the games if he had lived long enough. But spoiler, he doesn't live very long. So anyway, it goes through. They get there and they get like all cleaned up and whatever. And you see some of the tributes, but the only one that really makes initially any kind of scene is Panache, which is a District 1 guy, and he's like full of it and he's gross. And immediately I was like, not a fan. Not a fan. There's some really big District 11 guys. One of them's name is Hull, and he makes a fool of Panache really early on. So I was like, well done, sir. Thank you very much. Um, but they get cleaned up and shaved and all that, and then they're shoved to get put on a chariot to go, whatever. And they have like the worst, Drusilla is the worst on her own, right? She's annoying. Their little guide person. But then you have Magno, and he is their stylist, but he's like uh constantly licking poisonous toads, which make him like have drug induced hallucinations, so he's not actually good at his job. It was when they said that, when they explained that, I was disgusted. I was like, I've never been more disgusted in my life. This is freaky. But so that's his thing. So he doesn't really show up for anything, and when he does show up, he brings like old costumes that look like miners' costumes, and it's stupid and it's ugly, and it doesn't make them stand out at all. But it is what it is. So then they go on the chariots, but the problem is their horses freak out because I'm trying to think. A firework goes off. A firework goes off, like the Capitol lights let off a firework while the chariots are going down the main road to the president's house or President Snow's place, whatever. And it spooks their horses. So their horses take off at full speed and they crash into another chariot. I think it's 10 or 9, one of those two, and they crash into the chariot and they fly out. And Hamish is like, when he hits the ground, he feels blood and he's convinced that it's his blood, and this is where he's dead now. He's not even going to make it into the arena. But tragically, it turns out that it was Luella McCoy that also was thrown from the chariot, and she died. So he freaks out and he picks her up, and he's like, no way am I going to let the Capitol get her. What are they going to do with her? I'm not going to let the Capitol get her. So he runs, he takes the District 1 chariot and, sends it flying up towards President Snow's house with Luella in his arms still. And he places, because he doesn't want it not to be seen. He feels like they're going to find a way to cover this up, just like they did with Woodbine, right? And so he comes right up to the president's house underneath his window, and President Snow comes out onto like his balcony or whatever, and he puts Luella McCoy's body down there to be like, look what you did. Look what you did. You killed a little girl. She's 13. And he doesn't say anything. He just is like, you know. But at that point, medics come and they take her away, and he gets taken away, and everything like that. And President Snow didn't really do anything. He just kind of looked at it. I think he smirks or something, and Hamish claps, like, look at what you did. Are you proud of yourself? Kind of thing. But Hamish gets whisked away and all that stuff. Not too much happens with Hamish. They don't like seem to be too concerned or anything like that. Whatever. And then they go on to meet their mentors, and their mentors are Megs. I was like, did I say that right? I was thinking Megs from District 4, which from the 75th Court of Well, and Wirus from District 3, which you also know from the Court of Well. And they are, I think Wirus, her Hunger Games was the games before, and she won it by simply being still the whole time and being unseen, because she was in a reflective arena. So everything was reflective, so no one could really tell where anything was, and she managed to find a spot to hide where she couldn't be seen by anybody. And even when it was just between her and the last person, they threw something to kill her, but it actually killed them. It like flew back and killed them, or something crazy happened. It didn't hit them, and she didn't even shed any blood. She just hid. Okay. And that's how she won. And Megs has been like doing this for a while, so she's just here. And considering they had no mentor, because Lucy Greybird, she's R.I.P. MIA, R.I.P. They needed mentors, so these were the two that were willing, right? And they, of course, bring them to the training, and the training happens. You meet more people, and immediately you meet Ampert. Immediately, that is who he meets. And Ampert is a District 3 kid who is making alliances with all of the districts that are not career districts. And at first Hamish is like, nah, I'm not I'm not interested in all that. I don't want to get into all that. But Ampert is very convincing and also adorable, and also I love him. And you find out quickly that BT from District 3, that's his son. Ampert is his son. And BT is also there helping with the training because the Capitol found out that he was part of a rebellion that was going to take out Capitol Communications. When they found that out, they didn't kill BT because he's useful, but they reaped his son, and they made BT be there to watch his son in his final moments, basically. So very sick, very Capitol. And it made me angry, but it was fun to see BT, and Wires in the same place again. Uh, and so there's another one that's significant. And so, yeah, all that's going on. I'm trying to think what else happened other than that. I don't think there was anything significant there, but as it's going along, Hamish is starting to realize that Wyatt, not so bad. Actually, not a bad guy at all. And in fact, at one point, Hamish says something really cruel to him. He's like, what do you think your family thinks the odds of you? Like, are they betting on you, kind of a thing? And Wyatt is like, no, I think they probably only think I have 40% chance. And so they probably wouldn't bet on me, kind of thing like that. And Wyatt's kind of really upset after that. And Hamish realizes he did wrong. And I think he apologizes for that at some point. But either way, they end up making amends. And he also starts to realize that Maisie is actually a boss. She's a fashionista. She's a fashion queen, and she's very interested in everybody's little trinkets. And she helps them actually make the trinkets like usable. Like they'll bring their little district trinket, and she'll like weave it into something that they can wear and stuff like that. But also they can use like the string or whatever. And so, very cool. Love it. She's actually a boss. So he really likes Maisie and really likes Wyatt. He's feeling really guilty about Luella, but that's neither here nor there. Now, they're going home, but they stop. They stop, and only Haymitch is allowed to come out, and he's in front of some sort of mansion. And Plutarch Heavensby is there, and he's like, "Oh no, what's happening? What's happening to me? Did the thing that I did to President Snow, was that a no-go? Did I not get away with that? And so he's freaking out, and Plutarch, he says, not all of us here want to be in this cage either. Like, you districts are not the only ones in a cage. And of course Hamish is like, what the freak are you talking about, dude? Like, how are you in a cage? You don't have any problems. You don't have to get reaped. You don't have anything like that. But control is control, right? And Plutarch kind of gives us that hint. But then he does bring, President Snow does come in. Plutarch tries to talk to him for a little bit, but eventually they meet with President Snow, and President Snow is unwell. It turns out that he ate some poisoned oysters. I don't know why he ate them as well, but maybe to. But anyway, there was poisoned oysters, and to kill the guy who ran the parade because the parade went so poorly, and that man died. But Snow is fine. He just had to throw up. It was disgusting. I didn't understand that. I'm like, why would you eat poison oysters if that's what you're referring to? Or are you just sick and dying? I don't. Anyway, that was just a weird scene for me. Maybe I just didn't understand it, which is fine. But he finds out that Snow is not, exactly happy about the situation at hand. And he basically just gives him a threat that if he, doesn't behave himself, things are not going to look good. And as one does, right? And Hamish is worried about his family, so he's like, all right, I got to behave myself, right? And oddly enough, Snow starts talking about how, asking about his girl back home and stuff like that, and Hamish is like, and then he realizes that Snow knows that Lenore is a Covey, and because when he mentions her name, he correlates, right? Lucy, obviously, because he knew Lucy Gray, all right? And Hamish is totally freaked out about that. So he's like, okay, well, I really hope that I am on my best behavior from now on, because I'm pretty sure Snow is going to kill me in the arena, like 110%. He's positive that he's just going to get murked, But the main part of this is that he brings out Luella McCoy. Snow brings out Luella McCoy. Okay. But it's not Luella McCoy, of course. Luella McCoy died, and Haymitch knows this. But he found somehow an extreme lookalike to Luella McCoy, same age and all that. And she is programmed to say that I'm Luella McCoy from District 12. She can't say anything outside of her normal thing, or else she gets a shrieking, like there's something implanted in her ear that screams and makes her like cry, which is like horrifying. She's 13. She's 13. It's sick, dude. So they end up calling her Lulu because they can't ask her name. She's not allowed to respond with her name, or she gets that screeching sound in her ear. She's not allowed to respond where she's from. The only things that Lulu ever says is that, I'm Luella McCoy from District 12, and she says, you're murdering us, you're murdering us, you're murdering us, whenever talking to the districts, or talking to the Capitol, sorry, whenever talking to the Capitol. In fact, her interview pretty much consisted of her screaming that. So, yeah, which they didn't like very much, but she's just kind of crazy. She's crazy because they literally brainwashed her and like programmed her, and she's nuts. Poor little thing. She's 13, dude. I can't get over that. Okay, she's 13. But anyway, so Megs is really sweet with her, and Megs ends up kind of figuring out that Lulu is probably from District 11 and her family is probably dead. They may have been rebels, and or if they are still alive, maybe they kidnapped her as a threat, but now they've thrown her into the Hunger Games. I mean, it's beyond horrific when you see, like, it's just, not only are you screwing potentially if there's a living family with a family from District 11, you're also screwing with the family from District 12 who don't know that their baby is dead already. But Snow wants to keep this Hunger Games perfect, baby. We got to keep it rolling. It's got to be flashy. It's got to be good, you know? Oh my gosh. Anyway, there's so much going on there. It's so upsetting. So anyway, cut to the interviews. Let's just jump ahead. So the interviews are fun. I always think they're fun. Caesar Flickerman's sick. He's sick, but he's fun to read, okay? Um, they make a lot of fun of District 1, which I thought was interesting. In fact, most of the career districts they kind of made fun of, like they're meatheads, kind of a thing, because Panache is not good with his words, okay? He's not. He's just a man that's ready to throw fists, and can you blame him? I guess that's what he's around for. But they really like roasted the careers something fierce. And then the newcomers, which are the pack of non-career districts. They call themselves the newcomers, which is like consists of every district except 5. So they were really excited because they feel like their odds are really good to beat out the districts, right? Like if they all stand together, I keep saying this, to beat out the careers. So if they all stand together, all the newcomers stand against the careers, their odds are in the favor of the newcomers because there's more of them, even with those guys having District 5 on their side. So but the newcomers are all like loved by the group because they are kind of more pulled together. They know what to say. They clearly care about each other and they want to work together, and they come across really good for the interviews. Haymitch kind of goes for this rascal vibe, like, yeah, I used to bootleg in District 12 and blah blah blah, and he comes across as fun. He also only ever got a 1 for, he's like the legendary 1 from the training. So everybody got kind of mid, except for obviously the careers got high scores. He got a 1. He got a 1. He's a legend. He deserves that 1. And so everybody's really interested because he got that 1. So that was really good. Now, there is also another plot going on through all this, which Ampert and BT both talked to Haymitch about. They want to blow up the arena. They want to basically kill the brain of the arena. So Wyrus kind of put in his head that, in Haymitch's head, that every arena is a machine that can be broken. So Haymitch is like really curious about that, and then Ampert kind of brings up this idea of breaking it, and then BT follows up with the details of how to break the arena. And I think Plutarch also mentions this at some point, but Haymitch doesn't trust him as much. But it turns out that Plutarch actually does have some intel that helps Haymitch in the future, kind of. Okay, so the whole point is that there is a way to flood the sub area of, so like the arena's up here, there's like a basement, right? And there's a water tank that's in that basement that with a little bit of explosive could blow it and cause it to flood the sub area and all in turn destroy most of the machinery or the computerized machinery, right, of the arena and make it not function properly and therefore break it and maybe therefore break the games altogether. They wouldn't be able to repair the arena. Kind of that's the idea. So this is what Hamish is going into the arena expecting to do. He's fully expecting to die anyway because he thinks Snow is on his case and wants him dead. Okay. And so he figures, why not? Why not blow the arena and see who gets out? You know what I'm saying? Or blow up this section of the arena. So he learns that the area that he needs to go to is north. Plutarch gives him a clue that there are going to be berms, which is um, like when you plant plants of any kind, you kind of have that raised ground, so it's a berm. So that there are going to be berms, and he kind of thinks that okay, that's where the mutts are going to come from because BT tells him that he needs to go through a mutt tunnel, which is where they come out to go and cause havoc. So he needs to be able to go through a mutt tunnel to get to where the tank is. So the berms and the mutt tunnels, and he's getting told all this information. I don't know how he remembered any of it, but he did. Okay, he remembered it in here. Okay. So he keeps telling everybody, no, I'm not going to be with you guys. I'm more trouble than I'm worth. I have a 1 for a score. Snow's on my case. Like, they're going to want me dead, so I don't want any alliances. So he suddenly doesn't want any alliances whatsoever because he knows he has this mission. So the newcomers, they go do their thing. So then you get to the actual arena. We're there now. And by the way, Effie Trinket came in because Drusilla and Magno were like nowhere to be seen. Okay, hot mess behavior, and they weren't stylish. And she comes in to help her cousin Prosperina, who is part of their stylist team, and Effie helps to dress them and stuff for like the interviews. But also she's there at the arena to say goodbye to Hamish, basically, and make sure that he's all set to go. I really love seeing her, even though she's crazy. Okay, we love to see her, but I know she gets redeemed in the other book. She realizes the wrongs of the Hunger Games stuff later. So, way to go, Effie. But it is funny to hear her say, "Well, the Hunger Games are actually like really good for us guys. They're really good." I'm like, Effie, you're crazy. But anyway, anyway, so she says goodbye. He goes up there, right? And he's now in the arena, and the arena is gorgeous. But as we know, the arena is gorgeous, but everything's poisonous, and he finds that out pretty quickly. But basically, what he does is as soon as the shot goes off, he goes off into the woods where he knows he's going to find what he needs there. Okay, and everybody else goes their own way. I think they lose like half the amount of tributes within that first day because of the bloodbath, which is horrible. And Wyatt is one of them because he died protecting Lulu. Because poor little Lulu, she's crazy. She doesn't know what she's doing. Okay, and that made me sad. Wyatt died right off the gate, right out the gate. I liked Wyatt. Okay, I thought but I knew he was. That's the thing. It's like you go into this book and you know how it's gonna end. You know everybody's gonna die, but you're just like, but I don't. But I don't want to. I want them to be fine, but it's not how it works. Um, so the Hunger Games portion, though interesting because of the plot of him trying to blow up the flood, the water tank. I thought it was really missing the Hunger Games feeling. You know what I mean? Like there's no like he does run into tributes, but it's more later on. Like he doesn't really run into any trouble, and you're basically just seeing faces in the sky, and um, he's hearing cannons go off, and it has nothing to do with him because everybody's on the other side of the arena. So you don't see anybody except for Ampert eventually comes over because he's helping with the plot. And so it felt weird to me. I'm like, Hamish is away from all the action, but like at the same time, I guess I knew that was kind of going to happen. I didn't know exactly how, but anyway. So Ampert comes over eventually, and Ampert is really, really smart. He's so good at the words that he says to make it seem like, for the capitalites watching and the game makers watching, that they're like not doing anything wrong. They're just hanging out together because he missed him, and why aren't you with the newcomers, blah, blah, blah. But they're actually planning, to blow the thing. So eventually night falls, and Haymitch found a berm that he jammed a log into because he got attacked by a bunch of butterflies. And he did find Lulu, or Lulu found him, I should say, because Lulu was being told through her earpiece to find him, which is creepy. But she eventually found him. She was like the first tribute that he interacted with in the games. And but she ends up dying because she falls into a patch of flowers and they're poisonous, and she ends up like seizing and unfortunately dying that way. Um, and he actually picks her up and runs away with her into this group of willows and kind of hides her there, kind of like so that nobody could touch her, right? Again, kind of like what he did with Luella, Lulu, Luella, poor little things. But when he does that, he gets attacked by a bunch of like taser butterflies. Like they can electrocute him and they like zap him in the face and in the body and make him. So he runs away. But he ends up following those mutts back to where they went, and he jams like a stick in the berm so that he can get in there later. And so when Amper is finally with him, they are able to go, and he goes in there, he goes down, he does his mission, he blows the thing up, and he gets on out of there real quick. But when he gets up to the top, my boy Ampert's gone. Dude, this I was sickened, bro. I was freaking sickened. And so he goes over, hears all this noise, and he finds a bunch of mutts, okay? And they are like squirrels, but they have like blood in their teeth and pieces of his clothing. And he realizes that Ampert is underneath all of those disgusting animals, okay? These giant squirrels, man-eating squirrels. And so he grabs, I think he had a trident or some sort of weapon, and he's like, I promised BT that I wouldn't let him suffer. So he tries to like get all of the monsters off. There's only a skeleton left, picked clean, bro. Freaking sick, dude. He was like 12. He was 12. He was 12. He was 12. So far, a 13-year-old and a 12-year-old have died in his presence. Sickened. I'm sickened. I'm sickened. But the squirrels, they go away immediately after they finish off Ampert because they were made specifically to hone in on and kill Ampert. It's disgusting, dude. I think that was one of the moments when I was like looking at my book and I was like sickened. So Ampert's gone, and the flood managed to glitch quite a bit of the arena, but not all of it. And for a moment, the sky, he could see like the real sky, but then it cleared, it went back over, and a generator started up to continue to function the games properly. So mission accomplished, but also mission failed. Okay. And it felt like a lot of time went into that portion for it to come up with nothing. And I kind of knew it would come up with nothing, but like it was still really like, oh my gosh. So then he's just kind of surviving. He really doesn't ever run out of food or anything. He knows where to find food. He has a pack full of food, and food keeps being sent to him by, sponsors or whatever. So like hunger is not really a thing for him. Like they mention it at some point, but it feels kind of like silly. Like seems like they're doing pretty well. Eventually, he does meet up with Maisley, and they work together. Um, there's a volcano in the arena too. It does go off and it kills a bunch of tributes as well, but that's on the opposite end of where Haymitch is. Again, feels like he's very far away from all the action. But eventually, because of that, Maisley finds him, and she's got some burns and stuff from it, but she does find him. And they kind of work together for a while, and he finds this maze, and he's very curious to go through it and see where it ends up. They work together, eventually getting through there. They deal with some more mutts and really gross stuff that happens, but they eventually break through the maze, and it just leads to a sheer drop off of a cliff. Okay, and at some like in that area off the cliff somewhere, I presume, there is the generator. The generator's there. So he tries to throw things at it, but it bounces right back because there's a force field around it. So he cannot destroy the generator. Therefore, again, mission failed. He cannot stop the games from happening. So him and Maisley go and they hang out, and I think he goes there. He goes to the generator again, and then when he's coming back, he hears Maisley screaming, and he goes to check it out. And mind you, at this point, they have come to terms with the fact that they are family, bro. He calls her his sister. I freaking love it. Maisley is a boss, a queen, if you will. And Haymitch really likes her. And so, but he runs back out and he sees that mutts are attacking her. Mutts made specifically to attack her. And she ends up being killed by them. And though he fends off the creatures and he holds her for her dying breath, she's lost too. Oh, how could I forget, dude? Before this happens, they run into Silka and Carrot or something. I can't remember. Anyway, two of the district careers, right? I think it's 1 and 2 specifically, District 1 and 2, and they end up getting into a tussle, getting into a fight, but they like run past the barrier of the arena and they find game makers cleaning up a mess that I guess had been made by the arena glitching, which is so weird to me. I'm like, how how are you guys out here? That was the weirdest part of this book. I was like, what? Why are the game makers okay? And they're like, well, you must all be low end game makers if you're out here. You know what I mean? I think that's what Hamish says. Like, why are they risking your necks? So Maisley has a blow dart thing, and she blows a dart and hits one of the game makers. They go down. The others are running for it. And what's her face? No, no, it's not. It's District 4 because she had a trident. I don't remember what her name is, but anyway, she threw her trident, killed another one. Okay, and then one of them manages to get down, but it's presumed that they also died because they jumped a long distance just to get away from these crazy district people, and they probably died when they hit the ground because it's quite a long drop down into the sub area. So that happened, and that was the reason why those mutts were made to kill Maisley, because she killed one of the game makers, and the other District 4 girl also died for that same reason because she killed one of the game makers. So because they were the only two that died that day or whatever. So it was obvious, right, that they were being targeted for that reason by the Capitol to be like, no, 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 you don't get away with killing our game makers. And it's like, well, maybe you just don't put the game makers in a place where they could be found by tributes. I don't know. I mean, I'm just putting that out there for you. But I did like that Hamish had a moment where he was like, when after the game makers had died, like, so who did they have families? Did they want to be out here? Did they, like, sure, like the Capitol sucks and everything, but they're also people. Even though they're very stupid, brainwashed people, but they are people. I did like that moment. Because Plutarch and like Effie and Vitus and Prosperina are like the Capitolites that kind of make you think like, okay, well, they are people. They suck, but they're people. So it's like, especially Plutarch, obviously, because he's trying to help a little bit as much as he can, I suppose. But anyway, so that's why Maisley died. Maisley died. Hamish is left alone. And eventually it is just him and Silka. Okay. Who is District 1 or District 2. I don't remember. I think District 1. I don't know. But eventually it's just those two, and it is a showdown, baby. He has a weapon, she has a weapon, and I think they both have axes, and they literally just are like sparring, like they're fighting for their lives, dude. It's insane. But eventually he gets a really bad wound. He gets like cut right down the middle, and he books it into the maze, and he's like, okay, I don't know if this was his plan or if he was just like, I'll just die here, whatever. But she ends up throwing her axe and it goes out into the force field, and guess what? It flies right back, baby, and hits her in the head, and she's toast. Okay. And at that point, everyone else died. And by the way, don't feel bad for Silka, okay? Like, that would have been a sucky way to go. But this girl, okay? So before, I keep backtracking because I forget until I'm like, oh my gosh, and then this. I'm the worst at telling stories. Before that happened, before he fought Silka, he actually found Welly, which was a District 9 girl, and she was starving to death at that point because she hadn't found any food. She was up in a tree, and he manages to get her down, and he's trying to find food for her, and he tells her that he has to go find something to burn so that he can bake a potato for her because he has a potato. But he's like, it probably wouldn't taste too good if he didn't bake it, and she might not keep it down. So he's gonna go make a fire to bake a potato. And he goes to do that. He goes to get, and by the time he gets back, I don't know if he hears a scream or something. I don't know, but Silka had killed. This was another one where I was like staring at the page, like, I had to do one of these. Like, I was like, are you freaking kidding me? She's 12 years old. But Silka had killed Welly. I don't even want to say it. You know what? I'm not even going to say it. Read it if you want to. It's disgusting. Silka, you're sick. Okay. I get that Silka is also, I think she's 18 though, 17 or 18, but you're still a child. You're still a child, but you don't, you don't do that. You just don't do that. Okay. You don't do that. Okay. It just makes the, there's a lot of sick things that happen in this, but like, and I don't, as if I was in the Hunger Games, I would just die somewhere. Like I literally would. Like I would just literally be like either die defending somebody because that's, or just try to stick it out and get found and get killed that way. One way or another, I would not kill anybody. Okay. Um because I can't. It's not in me to do that even for survival. It's not in me to do that. But there's ways that you can end a person's suffering very quickly if they are suffering. Am I right? Like, you know what I'm saying? And Welly was suffering. She was starving to death, okay? And even though she could have been brought back to life, but she was starving to death, okay? Silka, you could have killed her faster, but you chose the sickest route possible. And I hate you for that, okay? I can't. I'm sorry. Anyway, I'm not even going to say it. Anyway, so that's what kind of initiated Haymitch attacking her. And anyway, so the way Silka went out is fine by me. So Haymitch gets airlifted. He's like, days pass. He's like drugged up and locked up, and he doesn't know what's happening. His wound ends up healing. Everything's great, but he's left feeling like I didn't do anything for anybody. Everybody in my district must think I am the worst person alive because all I did was run into the forest and I didn't help any of the newcomers. I didn't do anything, right? And I didn't even manage to do what I planned to do, which was destroy the arena. All true things, unfortunately. But you start to see where his regrets are coming from, and they're heavy, and I get it. I get it, you know? And now he's alive, so is his family safe? Because the whole thing with him and Snow, right? So he eventually, there's like the Victor interview or whatever, and as he's watching the Hunger Games highlights, he realizes how bad he looks. He looks selfish, like he doesn't care. Like, people are literally dying and he's not doing anything for them and like all of his stuff, and it makes him feel sick at himself, right? He has a good interview with Caesar, whatever, but he just wants to go home. So eventually, after like weeks of parties, and he's doing the most, okay, because he doesn't want Snow to take retribution for what he did. So he's like, maybe if I'm the best little victor ever, nothing bad is going to happen. Maybe. But of course, Snow has to know about what happened in the arena and who was responsible for that. So, anyway, as I suspected, okay, upon knowing as much as I know about the Hunger Games, when he gets home with his fellow tributes, all in caskets, unfortunately, but he did get home with it. Also sick, like you're traveling home with your dead tributes. Like you couldn't have sent them in another train. No, okay. Thanks for that, Snow. But he gets there and immediately he realizes there's a fire. He can smell it in the air and he runs. He knows, dude. But by the time he gets there, the entire house is engulfed. He tries to go in, but he can't. And district people are holding him back. Blair and Burdock, who are his best friends, are literally holding him down to keep him from running into the fire. And they're like, we already tried. It's too late. It's too late. And indeed it was. His mother and younger brother both died. Nobody knows who set the fire. But Haymitch knows it wasn't an accident because his mother was so careful, because of coal dust being everywhere, was so careful about keeping fires from accidentally happening in their home. So he knows it wasn't an accident. So that was heartbreaking. And then you find out that, they're going to go bury them, right? But they only have one coffin for both Ma and Sid, and that's because she was holding Sid when they both died. and they didn't feel like it was right to separate them. I'm sick, dude. I'm pretty sick. And of course, Hamish is like devastated and all this stuff, and he's worried about Lenore Dove because he knows that she was also arrested during his time over in the Hunger Games. So he's worried that she's been in the clutches, and he knows Snow knows who she is and stuff like that. So now his family's dead, so he has to find Lenore, right? But they have all the burials of all the people, okay, including not just Wyatt Callow, but also Wyatt Callow's father, whose name I think was Jethro, because he hung himself after his son died because I get, I don't know, maybe the shame or something. I'm not sure. He did though. Sick, just sick. Lots of people died. But he's like, okay, I'm gonna go find Lenore Dove now, right? So he learns that she is free, and he goes down into the meadow, and there she is. Woo, Um, of course, this is after a period of time. Like obviously, he grieved. He found his house in the Victor's Village, and his friends kept an eye on him because he was a little crazy. I mean, he thought Marilee Donner, who was Maisley's twin, was Maisley. I mean, poor guy. And of course, Luella McCoy's families have questions about what happened with Luella. We know that wasn't Luella, and he doesn't want to answer them because it's too much. And in this book, he never does, but I'm assuming he did at some point. But anyway, so he goes and he meets Lenore Dove, and she's like, oh, she has like these bag of gumdrops, and prior to Haymitch getting reaped, he had bought her a bag of gumdrops, gave them to Sid to give to Lenore because those are her favorite candy. But because he got reaped, obviously he couldn't give it, so he gave them to Sid to give to her. And she's like, oh, I've got these gumdrops or whatever, and they're just talking, they're so excited, they kiss, whatever. And he's like, oh, okay, I didn't know you kept the gumdrops or whatever, and he fed her one, right? And she's like, no, these aren't the ones that Sid gave me. Those are under my pillow. Like, I didn't want to eat them until you came, I didn't want to eat them or whatever. She had some sort of excuse why she didn't eat them. And don't you know, dude, literally as soon as she was like, I found these gumdrops in the meadow, I'm like, excuse me? You're gonna eat some random meadow gumdrops, dude? You're gonna do that? Someone planted those gumdrops there. Someone who knew what kind of candy she liked, and Snow knows everything. Okay, as soon as those gumdrops came up, I was like, there's no way these are the same gumdrops that Sid gave to her. There's no freaking way. It's been like weeks or whatever. Weeks have passed. There's no way these are the same. And even if she does say that she still has those same gumdrops, I'm like, no freaking way. No way. And it turns out all the gumdrops are like this blood red color. Okay. So he gets her to spit out the first gumdrop, but she's already eaten one. Okay. And so he starts freaking out, and he's trying to get her to like regurgitate it and all this stuff. And it doesn't happen. Okay. And she starts dying. And she's like, don't let another sunrise happen on the reaping. Is like her last words to him. And she dies, and he's freaking out, dude. But he literally just lost everybody because Snow wanted to make him an example. So then he basically holes himself up in his Victor's Village house, and he makes everyone stay away from him. He throws rocks at anybody who tries to come at him. He like goes madman. Okay, he's like, because if Snow knows that anybody is important to me, they're gonna die. So I get his logic. He's like, I don't want anyone near me. Am I right? And the only time he interacts with Burdock ever again, to my knowledge, is when he asks him where Lenore Dove was buried, because he was never able to find that out. And he does lead him to where it is, and I assume that's the last time they talk. And there's like this special Covey burial ground, right? Lucy Graybeard is there, by the way. That's interesting. And of course Lenore Dove is there, and he buries. So this right here, this is symbolizing a flint striker that is given to him by Lenore Dove before he leaves. And he buries his flint striker there. And the flint striker is like, it's useful. It's his token from the district, and he uses it obviously to start fires and things like that. But like, it's not like super. I mean, it's there. Okay, it's fine. But he buries it with her because he's like, not going to use this again. And then that's kind of it. Then you have an epilogue with Hamish and how, he was able to stop another sunrise happening on the Reaping with Peeta and Katniss, and it's a very sweet ending. It's very, very nice. And he's like, I probably don't have long for this world really because my liver's shot, but like, hey, we managed to stop the Hunger Games, baby. So overall, did I love Sunrise on the Reaping? I liked it. Yes, I actually, you know what? I would say I love it. I think it was a 4 star on Goodreads for me. I just think some of the actual Hunger Games is not as interesting as I was hoping it would be because of all of the plot and stuff. Though the plot was interesting, it didn't grip me as much as I was hoping, and I just kind of, even though the Hunger Games is horrible, like the action of the Hunger Games is interesting, and I would have liked to have seen more of that. But I also understand how, because of his inaction or in lack of involvement in the Hunger Games and in protecting the newcomers and things like that, that causes a lot of grief in him. So I do also get that part. I just think for reading, some of it wasn't that interesting. It's just a personal preference. I loved all of the old characters that were in here, like characters from other books and stuff like that were in here. Loved it. I love Snow hinting to his relationship or his knowledge, whatever, of Lucy Gray. Loved that. That was beautiful. I loved that we got to see a little bit of Lucy Gray as well. That was fun, in like a flashback. I could have done without all of the entire like last chapter is Haymitch talking about, finding Lenore and burying stuff, and kind of like what his life is like now, right? But also like it every Covey person has a song that they're named after, and it's like Lenore Dove's song. It like every other word. I just ended up like skipping. Like it's so long. It's a whole chapter of a song lyrics that I don't care about. Like, I'm sorry. Like, and the thing is, you've been hearing pieces of this song throughout the whole book, and I don't mind that. I really don't. I know Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes did this a little bit too, but the last chapter. I mean, I ended up skipping the paragraphs that were just the song, so I could actually just read what Hamish was saying because that was more interesting to me. So there were just some things that I was like, this is boring and I'm not interested. Okay. Also, like things like I would have loved to have seen how Wyatt actually went out instead of just hearing about it because I liked Wyatt, okay? I know I'm the only one, all right? Or like other members of the newcomers, instead of just seeing them in the sky, seeing what actually happened to them, I think would have been interesting. But again, I understand that's not the route this was going. Haymitch's guilt stems from a lot of inaction, and like I see that and I get that, and also that feeling of helplessness because of his circumstances and situations. So I do get it. I just think that maybe it just wasn't my 100% favorite, but that's fine. The Hunger Games is always going to be my 100% favorite. So anyway, the original series, not the Hunger Games. But Sunrise on the Reaping is great. If you like the Hunger Games, you are absolutely going to enjoy this book. So I would definitely recommend you pick up a copy or get it at the library or whatever you want to do. Do it up. Yeah, I really enjoyed this. I picked it up the day it came out. I think at like 9 in the morning. Like I was like, let's go. And I started reading it that night, and I think it only took me like 3 days to get through. I mean, it's like 382 pages, I think, but it's really quick. Susan Collins, the way that she writes, it just makes it really easy to read through. Um, so yeah, if you like Hamish, which I really like Hamish as a character, and this book certainly makes me like him even more. If you like Hamish, if you like the Hunger Games, if you like character cameos of all sorts, you'll definitely enjoy this. And I would definitely highly recommend Sunrise on the Reaping. It's a 4 star read for me. I don't think I have anything else to share. Um, I did get a couple other books at random, and I have some other books on my shelf that I borrowed from other people, so I may talk about those another time, but I obviously took way too much time talking about Sunrise on the Reaping, so we're gonna stop there. Um, I would definitely, like I said, highly suggest. I think that there's a lot of interesting things, interesting dynamics, seeing Snow at his worst. Um, and also seeing after how much time had passed how Lucy Gray still has a hold on that man. Like, can you calm down? Like, can you breathe? Can you just, or not, would be great. But yeah, definitely enjoyed, and can't wait to see what else Susan Collins comes up with in the future. I know she has other books and things like that, like Gregory the Overlander, even though I think that's more of a kid's book, but I mean, I read kids books all the time. Um, So I would love to see more from her and see where she goes from here. I don't know if she's ready to kind of leave the Hunger Games behind. I mean, the thing is there's so many characters in the Hunger Games that she could absolutely play with, and I would love to see with her creativity where that could go. Although eventually having Hunger Games, Hunger Games, Hunger Games does get repetitive because every single book has Hunger Games in it, except for the Mockingjay, I suppose. Does the Mockingjay have a Hunger? No, it doesn't, does it? No, it's just war, which is not great. But like the Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes had a Hunger Games, and this one had a Hunger Games, and so it's like, how many more can you really do before I don't know. But I would love to see like even something from like a career district, like a story from a career district, like what's my dude's name? Finnick. There we go. Wow. Because since he's a fan favorite, like I would think that Finnick might, she could do something with him because we've seen a capitalized perspective. We've obviously seen District 12's perspective countless times. I would love to see the perspective of a career. It doesn't have to be Finnick. It could be even someone from one or two, you know, I don't know. I think that could be really interesting to see even how they evolved into these career districts. Did they start out as career districts, or was this something that evolved over time because the capital obviously favors them and their imports or exports or whatever? Anyway, so those are my thoughts. Let me know what you think. Did you enjoy Sunrise on the Reaping? What was your favorite part? Who was your favorite character? I think my favorite was probably, well, I really liked Wyatt. I really did like Wyatt. And I liked Welly. And I liked Ampert. I mean, I liked Haymitch too. But yeah, those kids were some of my faves. And obviously, obviously, it did not go well. Panache's the worst. We stand by that. And Silka, the worst. I know you're also children involved in a killing game, but why did you have to be the worst? So yeah, let me know what you guys think. Let me go know what you guys liked. I think that's gonna be it. And this video is way too long, so we're definitely gonna be it. So just remember that I love you and Jesus loves you more. And thanks for watching. Bye.